In the fast-paced modern world, we often lose sight of what truly matters. The constant noise, the rush of our responsibilities, and the incessant demands of life can cloud our perception of the divine. But if we pause and look inward, we begin to realize that God is not a distant, unreachable force. He is here, present in every moment of our existence. Recognizing God in the mundane, in the everyday tasks, and in the very essence of our being is the true path of spiritual awakening. This journey doesn't require us to retreat from the world. Instead, it calls us to immerse ourselves more deeply into it, to find the divine in the most ordinary of moments. God is omnipresent and within us. One of the most profound truths that we must come to understand on the spiritual path is that God is not an abstract figure far away in the heavens. God is omnipresent, residing within each of us, in the spaces we inhabit, in the relationships we build, and in the very breath that sustains us. To realize God is not to search for Him in distant lands or seek Him in the pages of ancient scriptures alone. It is to recognize Him in the smallest, seemingly insignificant moments. When you step into a room, when you breathe, when you interact with another person, God is there, flowing through everything. God is not separate from the world. He is the fabric of the universe itself. It is essential to realize that God does not exist in isolation, separated from the chaos and messiness of daily life. Many people believe that in order to experience the divine, they must retreat from the world, sit in a cave, or meditate in silence for hours on end. While such practices can help foster spiritual awareness, they are not the only paths to God. The world itself is filled with God's presence, and it is through engaging with life, through facing its challenges, and through loving others that we begin to experience the divine. God is not an abstract force. He is real, and He is present in everything around us. Divine awareness in daily activities. Recognizing God in daily life starts with a shift in our awareness. We must develop the capacity to see the divine in everything we do. Whether we are cooking a meal, working at the office, or walking down the street, every moment offers us an opportunity to connect with the divine. The key to seeing God in these moments is mindfulness. When we practice mindfulness, we stop going through the motions of life on autopilot. We open our eyes to the deeper spiritual reality that exists beyond the surface of things. For example, when you are cooking, you can see God in the ingredients, the vegetables, the grains, the spices that come together to nourish you. When you are walking, you can feel the divine presence in the wind, the sunlight, and the rhythm of your breath. These are not separate from God. They are God's expression in the world. Every action, every object, every experience is imbued with God's energy. It is only through awareness that we begin to see this. This awareness does not need to be a constant state of meditation or prayer. It is about bringing the sacred into the ordinary. It is about understanding that every task, no matter how small, is an opportunity to experience God's love and presence. The more you open yourself to this awareness, the more you will find that every moment holds the potential to bring you closer to the divine. God is in silence, not just in words. One of the most common misconceptions about spiritual practice is that we must engage in constant prayer or chant mantras aloud to connect with God. While prayer and chanting can indeed help us focus our minds and hearts on the divine, true communion with God often happens in silence. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the space in which the divine speaks to us. When we quiet our minds and turn off the noise of the world, we begin to hear the subtle whispers of the divine. These whispers may not come in the form of clear words or messages, but rather as feelings, intuitions, or moments of deep peace. God often communicates with us in these quiet moments, speaking directly to our hearts in a language beyond words. This is why silence is so important in spiritual practice. In silence, we let go of our egos and open ourselves to the presence of the divine. Meditation is one powerful way to cultivate silence and deepen our connection with God. However, it is important to note that silence is not just about sitting in stillness. It is about cultivating an inner stillness that remains with you throughout your daily life. You can carry this inner silence into your conversations, into your work, and into your interactions with others. As you practice this, you will find that the more you embrace silence, the more you begin to hear the voice of the divine in all things. The role of devotion in realizing God. Devotion is one of the most potent forces in the spiritual journey. It is the act of surrendering your will to God and recognizing that the divine is the ultimate guide, the ultimate source of love, wisdom, and peace. Devotion is not about rituals or ceremonies. It is about the heart's connection with God. True devotion is born out of love, not obligation. It is the deep, heartfelt desire to serve God, to live in alignment with His will, and to embody His love in all that we do. Devotion is also about surrender. It is about letting go of the illusion that we can control everything and trusting that God's plan is far greater than anything we could ever imagine. When we surrender to God, we open ourselves to His guidance and wisdom. We stop trying to force outcomes and begin to trust that everything is unfolding according to a higher plan. Through devotion, we come to recognize that we are not separate from God. We are not independent beings who are trying to find God. We are already one with the divine, and our spiritual practices are simply ways to awaken to this truth. Devotion allows us to dissolve the ego and live in the awareness of our oneness with God. Faith, the foundation of spiritual realization. Faith is the bedrock of spiritual realization. Without faith, we cannot see the divine in every moment, nor can we trust that the divine is always present, even in times of difficulty. Faith is not blind belief. It is the deep inner knowing that God is always with us, guiding us, loving us, and supporting us. It is the confidence that the divine is always present, whether we are experiencing joy or suffering. True faith arises from experience. When we begin to see God's hand in our lives, we develop trust in His presence. Faith grows stronger when we notice the subtle ways in which God communicates with us, guiding us through challenges, helping us make decisions, and showing us the way forward. This faith is not based on miracles or dramatic signs, but on the quiet confidence that God is always at work in our lives. Through faith, we also come to understand that God's timing is perfect. Often, we may not understand why certain things happen in our lives, but faith allows us to trust that everything is unfolding according to a higher plan. The more we surrender our doubts and fears, the more we open ourselves to God's love and guidance. The power of karma and free will. One of the most significant aspects of realizing God in daily life is understanding the role of karma and free will. While God is omnipotent and omniscient, He has given us free will, the ability to make choices and shape our lives. This gift of free will is both a blessing and a responsibility. The choices we make have consequences, and it is through these choices that we learn and grow spiritually. Karma, or the law of cause and effect, is the mechanism through which we experience the results of our actions. Every action we take, whether good or bad, creates a ripple effect that impacts not only our lives, but also the lives of those around us. Understanding karma helps us recognize the importance of living in alignment with divine principles, truth, love, compassion, and kindness. When we live with integrity and compassion, we create positive karma, which in turn brings us closer to God. While we are responsible for our choices, it is important to remember that God's grace is always available to help us. Even when we make mistakes or face hardships, God is always there to support us, to help us learn from our experiences, and to guide us back to the path of righteousness. The journey of life is not about perfection. It is about learning, growing, and becoming more attuned to the divine presence within us. The illusion of the material world. One of the greatest obstacles to realizing God in our daily lives is our attachment to the material world. We live in a world that places great value on wealth, status, and success. We are often taught that these things bring happiness and fulfillment. But the truth is, that the material world is fleeting. Nothing in this world is permanent, and attaching ourselves to external things only leads to suffering. When we recognize that the material world is not the ultimate reality, we begin to detach from it and turn our attention inward. The more we focus on the divine, the more we realize that our true nature is not tied to material possessions or achievements. Our true nature is divine, eternal, and unchanging. This recognition frees us from the chains of desire and attachment and brings us closer to God. God's love and compassion. God's love is the most powerful force in the universe. It is unconditional, boundless, and infinite. This love is always available to us, no matter what we do or where we are. God's love is not dependent on our actions or our worthiness. It is given freely, without expectation of anything in return. When we open our hearts to God's love, we experience peace, joy, and fulfillment that cannot be found in the material world. This love heals us, transforms us, and brings us closer to the divine. It is through love that we connect with God and with all living beings. Love is the thread that binds us to the divine and to each other. The final realization: God in every moment. The ultimate realization is that God is in every moment, in every breath, and in every experience. When we come to see the divine in all things, we experience true peace and liberation. Our lives become a reflection of God's love, and we live with the awareness that we are never separate from the divine. The key to realizing God in daily life is not to look for Him outside of ourselves, but to turn inward and recognize His presence within. God is not far away. He is within us, in every thought, every feeling, and every action. The more we recognize this truth, the more we experience the joy and fulfillment of living in alignment with the divine. In every moment, God is there, waiting for us to open our hearts and minds to His presence. All we need to do is awaken to this truth and live with devotion, love, and faith. When we do, we experience the true beauty of life, the beauty that comes from knowing that God is with us, always and forever.